Counting the
Cost of working for the Air Force.
Wow, Kevin, how did you get into the Air Force?
Okay, so after high school, I knew I wasn't going to do too well in college. So, as to not waste my parents' money, I decided to get a job. But instead, I looked towards the military, and I went through. I went to the recruiting office for the Marines, for the Navy, for the Army, and then for the Air Force. And the Air Force just seemed to pull me in better. And here I am. I'm 18 and a half years now.
Uh, how
Yeah.
old how old were you at the time?
At the time I joined, I was well when I went to the recruiting office, I was 18, but I didn't get to get into the Air Force until I was 19.
Wow. What made you think that college is not for you?
Well, I my mentality, my maturity just wasn't there. And considering how I admittedly barely graduated high school, I knew college was like no joke. And I didn't want to, waste my parents' money because, we didn't have a lot. Um, and the military offers free schooling. So I figured, if there's any money that's going to be wasted, it'd be on other people if I didn't take it serious. Thank God I've matured. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mhm.
So can you tell me about your life as a student in elementary school and before you graduated from high school academy?
Okay. So in elementary school was uh yeah, honestly it was a blur because I didn't really take school seriously until my father, which was the disciplinary in my family, until he really put fire behind me. I started, getting better grades. Math actually was my stronger suit at the time. And then in high school, since my mother and father, my biological mother and father have their own spouses, I have my stepfather and my stepmother. I would bounce between my both parents, and I started high school in Florida in William T. Dwyer. And it was a new experience because I never really spent time in the South like that. And then, excuse me, then I went back to New York with my father and ended my high school career in 2002 is when I graduated. Yeah.
Wow. I can't imagine having your biological father and mother remarrying somebody else. And how did it affect you growing up as a kid? And do you think it affected your career option choices?
Um, no, actually, I never thought about I guess I was so young when it happened. I want to say it was probably when I was 2, 3 when it happened. So
Okay.
it never really affected me. And it was awesome having, a stepfather and stepmother. I never saw anything different. I grew up in
Wow.
two nuclear families, so it was very healthy. And they're both Christian families too. So I had a good morals and discipline and a structured home to grow up in.
Oh, so you were having a very good relationship with both stepmother and stepfather, and then biological mother and father.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. God is good. God is good.
In America, divorce is pretty common, but in
Hmm.
Korea is not as common. So I
Hmm.
haven't heard maintaining good relationship with both
Hmm.
parties, step and biological.
Hmm.
So, oh, what does that look like? How did so like you said it was healthy. What does that look like?
Well, as long as my biological mother and father, they had, God as their center. So regardless of what happened between them when they were younger, they knew that it was important for me to grow up in, in the mindset that ultimately my salvation is what matters and their salvation what matters. So it everything from there, I grew up on biblical principles from both sides of the family. We went to church every Sabbath. We had our morning worships and stuff like that. And even when my stepfather came along later on, he actually accepted not only Christianity, he was a Christian, but to accept to be a 7 Day Adventist is strict, and then he, which is really cool. And then he had got baptized. I want to say it was like 15 years ago now, which was awesome. And my stepmom, she, I grew up with her my whole life. I don't remember a time without her, honestly. So it was just like my mom. I didn't call her stepmom or anything. It was like mom when I'm at this house, and mom when I'm at that house, dad and when I'm at this house, pops when I'm at that house. So I never saw it anything different. I guess I was blessed that way. I know a lot of people grow up and it's difficult to balance into. Also, which really helped is my father and mother, they're strict, which a lot of people frown upon or they see negativity, but that strictness helped me have structure, and having structure is what you need a lot when you're a youngster, because when you get older, you start to understand why they were giving you so much instructions and things like that, and then you start to reason well.
Do you think the reason why you had great biological and step parents and they had strict rules enforced, do you think that's the reason why you enjoyed being in the military?
Actually, yes, my wife would tell you that's probably why also too, because like I've always, and it made me feel safe having structure, knowing where the lines were, knowing where, how far to go and things like that, parameters. And it makes me feel that there's control, that there's a set path, and things like that.
Wow. So when was the last time you met? When did you leave Korea?
I left Korea in 2016.
Wow. So that's like, how many years ago is that? Like 60 years ago?
Yeah, 6 years ago. Huh?
That's amazing. So after that, you had kids, two kids?
Oh, well, so I met my wife well, when I went to Las Vegas. I went to attend a church called Paradise SDA. I was there for training to work on the aircraft that's in Korea. So after I left, Paradise, and I went back to, when I went to Korea, we stayed in contact and we were recording. She has her own daughter. Before that,
Okay.
she had at the time I met her, she was an 8-year-old girl.
Yeah.
We court, and then we decided to get married. And then we got married when I came on mid tour, halfway through my tour in Korea in 2015. And then when we got married, we were hoping to get orders for Las Vegas, but God saw it fit that we move here in North Carolina. So then we moved here, and my eldest daughter, now she's 16, and we had a little girl 4 years ago, and she's 4 now, obviously. Yeah. So I have a stepdaughter and I have a daughter. I have 2 kids.
Wow, that's beautiful. So you earlier said that school wasn't really something that you thoroughly enjoyed, at least academically. And you enter the Air Force. So how does that upbringing or your experience at school affect the way you raise your children? Because personally, I have a 11-month-old daughter. My
Oh.
plan is to homeschool her, first of all,
Mhm.
and then so spend as much time as possible with my daughter. And
Mm,
then also make sure I want to make sure she learn to make money before
mm,
even she hit 20, because I believe that's a very good way to train their mind so they can actually start living independently.
mm,
So that's personally the way I see it, because I grew up like studying like crazy, and I realized how useless those academic like endeavor could be, because
mm,
it doesn't really help you cope with real life, make
mm,
money, run
mm.
businesses, pay
Yeah.
taxes. So I'm trying to run to the other extreme in a sense. So how did your upbringing or educational background affect the way you actually raise your children, or the way
Mm.
you plan to raise your children?
So, as far as my educational background, grades were always, definitely important in my household, but I did not know how to apply myself, whether as a learning disability or not. But like my father didn't tolerate any kind of foolishness in school, and my mother was the same too. But They also had, being immigrants to the United States, because both my parents are born in Trinidad and Tobago, and they immigrated to the United States. They were working hard also, so to monitor me and make sure that I was doing what I was supposed to do in school was quite the task. As far as our high school, I am very grateful that my wife, she born in Las Vegas, she was actually raised in a kind of strict home too, and grades was very important for her, and education was very important to her. She has her bachelor's degree in nursing, and she's a case manager now. She, when it comes to our kids, she takes the forefront when it comes to educating them and things of that sort. And I'm very blessed because for us, both of us, is very important. Right now, we have our eldest daughter. She's a senior now, and she wants to be a nurse, and school is very important. She makes straight A's. My youngest
Wow.
one, she's just started preschool a week ago, and she's super smart. She's well beyond what I was when I was younger. And if we had the ideal way, it would be that we would homeschool her, but it would be like a homeschool families where everyone puts their children in one person's home for 1 week and then bounce it for, because I think it's the best way that you can raise your children when it comes to education, when it comes to spirituality and emotional stability and things of that sort.
I see. So it seems like both of your children are super smart. So the way you started your education, in a sense, at the Air Force, I mean, because you don't learn things academically per se, but you learn practical skills, how to work with people, how to work for the government, all these things. So how was your education, so to speak, in the Air Force? How did it pan out since you got started 20 years ago up to this moment?
Okay. So when we first join, we after we go through basic training, it teach you how to listen to your commanding authority, and to make sure that you're a person who can be a part of the military, because not everybody make it. After that, you go through technical school. Technical school gives you certain points towards college degrees and things like that, but you learn a specialty. Like my specialty is aircraft mechanic and weapon system mechanic. So you get certain, points towards aerodynamics and things like that. And after that, after you become into the operational Air Force, you can pursue college at your will. They give you free education. You don't have to pay for your books or anything like that. As long as you pass, you can continue. So right now, I'm working on what we call as our CCAF. It's a college of the Air Force. Basically, it's like it'd be equivalent of an associate's degree. Just doing it to make sure I have that before I graduate, before I leave the Air Force, so I have something for my portfolio. But as far as education, that's pretty much all the education I have. I've taken a couple classes here and there, but that's because it's a requirement to be in the Air Force now, which I didn't foresee when I was joining. I joined to escape education and going through the college, and then I turned out I needed to stay in the military anyway. I'm like, oh wow, yeah.
So would you say it was pretty much same kind of uh uh academic work to go through the military training?
Um, I would say it'd be more like a technical school, like a trade school. Trade schools, they teach you a trade to go into the workforce and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I would say it's closer to a trade school, because in tech school they teach you exactly what your job's going to be. They hold your hand through the whole process, and then there's levels to it. So I started, when I got to my first base, I was a 3 level. And that means someone always had to work right next to me and watch me, monitor me as I do, until I earned my 5 level. And after I earned my 5 level, I can work by myself, but there's still after a supervisor who has to come when I'm completely done and inspect everything that I did. and he would be the 7 level. And now that I'm a 7 level, I'm the person who primarily inspects people's stuff. I do the work and I inspect people. So it's like levels to things. So I have, some uh some education, some experience and things of that sort.
Wow. So you've been learning practical skills and all these things, and you earlier mentioned you're in the process of getting an associate level degree right now.
Yes,
So
I have math and speech, and really I've just been sitting on my hands. I should just go ahead and do it. I have like a year and a half until I can officially retire. So I need to go ahead and
wow.
knock that out. I just been sitting on it because life really, and just procrastination, honestly.
So you have 2 years left until retirement?
2 years until I can retire. I
Yeah,
probably plan
retire.
to do 2 more years, but only because I can, and it helps me to get a higher percentage in my retirement. But that's if God wills it. I prayed about it. I'm still kind of waiting for an answer, so I'm just going to move until God says no more.
Sure. Wow, that's awesome. So does that military training require you to get bachelor's degree or master's degree or anything like that, or was it just technical skills that you needed on the way?
Yes. So for me to go higher than the rank I am right now I'm on E6, excuse me, an E6 technical sergeant. And for me to become a master sergeant, which is an E7, they want you to have your bachelor's degree. And I don't have to have it, but the chances of me getting it against all the other competitors are going to be very hard, because usually when you're going up for master sergeant, people would have gotten their CCAF, and people would have gotten their bachelors. A lot of them, some of them, have their masters and things like that. It's not 100% a requirement, but it does make things way easier for you to progress through the ranks.
I see. So did you acquire any of those yourself?
Uh, like I said, I will require probably a bachelor's degree if I want to become a master sergeant. It's not 100% that I have to get it, but chances are everyone else who I'll be competing against to go to get it, they're probably going to have it. And that'll be one last thing, one less qualifier that I have versus them. So I'll say yes.
I see. Wow. So you said earlier that some people give up on the way and they don't continue, they don't adopt the ways of the Air Force. They find it difficult to adjust to the very structured and strict lifestyle.
Mhm.
So and apparently you've been working for the Air Force for 20 years. So what was the
18 and a half.
pattern?
Yeah.
How long?
I've been in 18 and a half, almost 20.
18 and a half. Okay. So what has been the pattern of those people that are thriving in the Air Force and those that weren't?
Okay. So just accepting what you have to do, and instead of trying to reason on why you have to do it, or if you don't like it or anything like that, it's
Yeah.
more of a like, okay, it has to get done, therefore I have to do it, and just do it. It because like one of our things that we have to maintain is physical training, and that's a lot of people get out because they can't maintain the standards that the Air Force has. And of all four branches, we have the easiest standards when it comes to physical training. So a lot of times they just fail to pass their PT test, their physical training test, and then they're kicked out. Is what we like to say. They're allowed to go and seek a different employment outside of the Air Force. Um, another one is that we have. There's a lot of people who deal with things like we deal outside world, like if they've had problems in their career, like alcohol related incidents, or if they've done things like show up to work not on time, or if they've just done delinquent on their paying their bills and things of that sort. Anything that really hinders you from being your best at your career, that reflects poorly, on the Air Force, and everyone has to be accountable. So those are some things that are kind of common amongst people who, and some people just decide to get out because they feel like that it's too strenuous, and they want to, they think they can do better on the outside, and some do, you know. It's not for
Mhm.
everybody. It's for those who are willing to make the sacrifice, and also those who love the lifestyle and love the structure, and there's a lot of benefits also.
Wow, awesome. So you said earlier that there were other options, Army and
Navy and Marines.
Navy and Marines.
Mhm.
So why are you attracted to the Air Force?
Um, Funny story, honestly. So when I was first joining back in 2002 is when I decided to go to look at the recruiter's office. It was lined up Marine. When I was walking from train station, the first one I would have went into was the Marines, then the Navy, then the Army, and then the Air Force, right? And the Marine guys, they were standing outside of their little office, and they were like, "Come on, man, join us. You want to be a part of Marines? We're the few, we're the proud. You know, you want to be strong." Oh, and then as I kept walking, they're like, "Oh, don't go to them, man. You would be a coward. You would be a punk. Don't do it." And I was like, huh, they're coming off really strong. I was like, okay. And the Navy was like, "Come on, man, you want to get on a battleship and blah, blah, blah." And they were all like hardcore too. And they're like, "Don't listen to those Marines, man. We're just as hardcore, blah, blah, blah. You want to be a Navy SEAL?" And, you know, they were a little strong. And then the Army guy was like, "Come on, this is America's military, man. We're the Army. You know, you want to wear the, you know, you want to be a hero, blah, blah, blah." And then when I got to the Air Force door, he was nowhere to be seen. And he was inside his office with his legs up. I opened up the door and I was like, "Hey, sir, is this the Air Force recruiter?" He's like, "Oh, hi, how you doing? Yeah, this is you. Want to talk to me?" I was like, "Yeah, I think I do." So I sat down and I saw the nice posters of all the jets and stuff like that. And the Air Force guy, he was just as in shape as the rest of the guys. He was, but the thing is that he understood, and I believe this is where it attracted me. He understood that he's not trying to sell me on anything. You know, the Air Force is just what we would consider the better branch. And I only say that not to say that the other branches aren't great, but when I've talked to the 90% of the people I've talked to from the other branches, they all say that they wish they had went to the Air Force because the lifestyle is better, quality of life is better, they're treated differently. The chances of them staying in for a full 20 years are more likely in the Air Force than in the other branches, because the other branches, a lot of people don't want to put up with the lifestyle and the strenuousness that they have in those branches. So, I mean, that recruiter's demeanor, he told me he was a fireman in the Air Force, and he told me all the different places he got to go. Like, I wanted to go to Japan since I was younger, you know, because I used to watch all the anime and watch the movies. And I was like, and I love Asian food in general, like Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Thai, Indian. I love it all. Um, so, and that was my first base actually. It was Japan, Okinawa, Japan. So when he sold me on that, I was like, yeah, I'm sold for the Air Force. And I got in 2004 is when I went to basic training.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. I didn't know all that. So when you say military, that just is specifically for the Army only?
No, military is all armed
Ah, okay.
forces. Armed forces is military, so it can be, you know, anywhere around the world. If you're a part of armed forces, then you're in the military. Yeah.
Okay. So where have you worked so far? In which countries, and how were those experiences?
So my first base, Okinawa, Japan, in 2004. I got there and I loved it, loved it. And then I left there in 2006 to go to Tyndall Air Force Base, which is in Florida, Panama City Beach, Florida. It was okay. I didn't know what I had until I left because I just listened to everybody else and they were saying, "Oh man, this is a black hole," meaning that you get stuck there. So they say the only way you can get out is if you go to Korea. And I was like, "Oh man, I get to go back to Asia." Okay, so I put in for Korea and I got Osan, Korea, Osan Air Force Base. That was in 2009. I got there. I left there in 2010 and I went to Aviano, Italy, and I stayed there for 2 years. And I left Italy in 2012 to go to Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. After Louisiana, I hated it there. I didn't like the airframe that I was working on, the B-52s. It was just not my thing. So I put back in for Korea because I didn't want to stay there. That time I went to Korea. That's where I met you guys. That second time I was there, and I was there from what was it 2015? Oh, 15 to 16, I believe it was. That's where, and I met my wife on the way to Korea, and I met a lot of people in Korea. Like I met you guys, I met the Pratts, I met so many people that are still my friend till this day. I met Ben, um, and then after Korea, I went on to here, and I've been here for 6 years now. This is the
Wow.
longest base I've ever been at, and it's because I got married. So
Wow, that's awesome. I think marriage is amazing when it works.
marriage is amazing. Yes. The Air Force is particularly better at managing while you're married. I don't know how good it is for the other branches, but they deploy and they do a lot of things more, and I can imagine it's more difficult. But the Air Force has been very
Oh,
lenient. Like just the other day, my wife, well, 3 weeks ago, my wife broke her leg, and I've been taking care of her, and the Air Force is a lot like my bosses. They were like, yeah man, take whatever time you need, and I've been coming to work late because I have to drive her everywhere. I drop off my kids in the morning, and then I leave at the same time I would leave work, and I come and pick her up, and and they've been lenient about it. They're like, man, you just, as long as you get the work done that we give you in the time, man, you do whatever. You're an adult.
wow.
Yeah,
That's beautiful. They're very accommodating to
very
whatever you need.
accommodating. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I realized not all the Air Force people are pilots. So what are
Yeah.
the exact tasks or duties that you haven't exposed to?
Okay, so I joined as a armament technician, which means I load bombs and missiles on the aircraft and so pilots, they're the ones that fly it. Armament, we're the ones who load the munitions on the aircraft and maintain the weapon system. We have crew chief. They're the ones who maintain the aircraft itself and structure. We have engines troops who maintain engines and things of that sort. We have avionics who operate all over the avionics system, make sure whatever they say and do in the cockpit, the jet does. We have E&Es, electrical, and I can't remember what it stands for, but they're electricians basically. They're when it comes to troubleshooting and things like that. They're the guys you want to talk to. We call them pointy heads. They're the smartest ones. Um, okay. Oops. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I lost you on screen. It's telling me we have 9 minutes and 50 seconds left.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's just on the flight line side. We have medicals, we have cooks, we have people who work on HVAC, which is, heating and air conditioning. We have pretty much everyone that you need to maintain a regular lifestyle. We have construction workers, everything.
Wow, that's awesome. So, what was the most rewarding thing as the airman, and then what was the most challenging thing that you experienced that you almost wanted to give up?
Oh, yes. So the most rewarding for me was basically when I acquired a new rank. That was the most rewarding because it's something I earned, something I worked hard for, and I finally got. Um, those probably are the times where I've just been thanking God the most, because I know at the end of the day, He gave me the brain that I have. He gave me, what it took to push forward and work hard and reach the goal that I wanted to reach. I've always wanted to reach at least at a minimum a technical sergeant, and by God's grace, this year actually is when I made it. So, and the worst has been growing pains, and it's been things that I've had to learn through going through the crucible, if you will. I had to I made some poor decision early in my career that made me go through some hardship, and I prayed a lot and had people praying for me, and God has held me through it all, and it made me grow, my character grow, my experience grow. It was the most strenuous and stressful time of my career, but at the same time, it's probably where I had got the most growth, and I'm thankful that I went through it.
Wow, that's beautiful. So, sounds like you have worked many years.
Mhm.
So, what are you look forward to after the retirement?
So yeah, retirement from the Air Force doesn't mean I stop working. It just means that I no longer work for the Air Force. I'm looking to work in HVAC myself and plumbing and electrician. That would be like my goal, because when we bought the house that I'm currently in, we everything was fine, but then the AC went out after we've signed it and everything. And my stepfather, he's actually works HVAC, and my father also worked HVAC when they were I had, my stepfather still works HVAC. My father used to. He's retired now. Um, so having that background, it just made sense, and having the issues that we had to deal with this house, it made sense for me to go into that. And that's something that's always needed, heating and air conditioning. People, no matter how advanced things come, you're always going to need that, especially in those hotter areas like Arizona, Florida, Texas, California, and I figured I love working with my hands. I like using tools and that things of that sort. So that's going to be my plan, is to move on to that. Lord willing, I always pray about it. And I would love that to kind of be my mission work too, for those less fortunate who can't, pay for a new AC or pay for plumbing and things like that. So especially in our church, I would love to be the person like, hey, don't worry, I have the experience, I'll come and take care of it. And then I can, and if my wife and I, when the kids leave, if God hasn't come there, our plan is to go around doing missionary work as a couple, and I love to have um, those skills to be able to, like, if we see a family who's struggling with any kind of things like that, we just take care of it. We minister to them, we pray for them, and then we'll move on to another, family or another people or another country, whatever God decides, is fine.
That sounds beautiful because I'm also seeking on early retirement by investing in real estate and creating that uh auto generated income that can keep me going. Because
Yeah,
I've been watching people in the YouTube and many people have been successfully doing it, and I was like, why not me?
why not?
So,
Yeah, for
so I
sure.
think I think a new chapter begins when retirement comes to us, and if we have a sustainable uh
Income, yeah.
the what is it,
Sustainable income. Oh yeah.
the pension coming in, and
Yeah.
yeah, the cash flow that comes other than just labor
Yeah.
can continue to come flow
Yeah.
into our lives. I think we
Yeah.
can do something more meaningful than we have to show up, we have to be there, we have to be
Yeah. Continuous
on.
cash flow. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes. So I think I'm looking forward to that time. That's I'm trying to work hard. That's awesome.
Mhm.
So, if a 7-year-old would like to work for the Air Force, what would you like to tell him or her?
I'd ask him why, see where his mind is at. And if he's passionate about the aircraft and things like that, I would like, yeah, pray about it. And I mean, as long as you don't get a hard no from God or anything like that, if it makes sense, I tell them the good and the bad. I'll tell them, it, just know that it's harder if you have a family in the beginning. If you plan to, do it while you're young and single, it's amazing. You're not tethered to anything. But at the same time, just know that eventually usually people want to start a family. And the one thing that my wife and myself, we had to learn is that, like, the Air Force is almost like my mistress, because I didn't realize how much it takes away from your family, um, when you're married, because I have been, this is my seventh location, and six of those seven I have been single. So I didn't, it never, it never dawned on me. I never thought about it. But now since I've been here, I've deployed more times than anywhere else, and I've been TDY, which is temporal duty. I've been, gone a lot more than, and it at first, early stages in my marriage, it kind of weird on us, and it put us through a little bit of a crucible ourselves. But now we're stronger, now we're better, and now it's more of an understanding of things. So I would warn younger people who are thinking about it, about all those kind of things, to consider all these things before they make that commitment. And you can also always just do it for 4 years, a minimum, because they require 4 years minimum. And you can do for 4 years and then get out, get what you need if you want to get your money for school and stuff like that, education, experience, and qualifications, and you can do all that and just get out. But I won't tell anybody to do it because they require 4 years minimum, or you can sign up for 6 years. I said just do the 4 years, and if you think this the way you want to go, if it's still your dream and stuff, then continue re-enlisting.
Wow, that sounds great. So I have a last question. My wife's dad is a Chinese American, and he leans toward China because he speaks more Chinese than English, and then
Mhm.
also he's wondering why American military forces are everywhere in this world. And I know America is playing the role of ancient Rome
Mhm.
by having that global power, protecting people from injustice or anything terrible happening, terrorism or whatever. So how did you feel about U.S. presence in different parts of the world?
The U.S. presidents in different parts of the world. I mean, I hope that every president, king, prime minister, or whatever does what's best for the people and understand that their greatest task is to serve the people, and the best thing of their interest. Just like our president, what we pray for him in our church, and he's my boss, my ultimate overheading boss, me being in the military. So, regardless of what he says or what he says or what he believes, I will back him because that's my duty. But God is my ultimate, person. I regardless of how I think of any other entity or whatever, I believe what the Bible says that God puts them in powers and He raises up and pushes them down. Also, I do believe America is the last world power when it comes to military might, and that's why we're everywhere. I believe we are part of prophecy also in Revelation when it talks about the beast with the little horns. We're like the youngest nation, but yet we have the military might that's unrivaled. And I believe America has its role to play. I love my country, but I also understand that prophecy is prophecy. And as the T-shirt says, I'm not of this world. My real country is in heaven, and that's where we're prepping to. And until the earth is made new, this is not my home.
That's beautiful. I'm gonna call you again because our time is over.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.